I haven't told this story in a long time. Forget about the quiz, okay? I haven't told this story in a long time. But this reminds me of how we changed the training at the company I worked at. Paula knows I collect Wizard of Oz memorabilia. The older, the better. I just love Wizard of Oz memorabilia. And the reason I love it is because in 2001, I was training salespeople. And this one particular class, you could see they were made up of a lot of young folks, and they were scared to death the thought of going out and being a salesperson. First of all, no one wants to be in sales, but everyone wants to sell something. No one wants to go up and face rejection, but people want to grow. And they decided to take the opportunity to enter the world of sales, and some of them should not have been there, and others clearly should have. So what I did was I told them my version of the Wizard of Oz, and from that time forward, we closed every class with me telling the story of the Wizard of Oz. So from 2001 until 2005, 2004, 3 years, we did that. So I get to tell it to you today because he brought these in. If he hadn't brought these in, you wouldn't hear my story. So it starts off like this. Do you believe one statement of fact would change the way you think and therefore change the way you run your life? One statement of fact changed the way you think and therefore change the way you run your life. I'm going to stop smoking, and then you stop. I'm going to stop drinking or gambling, and then you stop. One statement of fact changed the ways you think and therefore change the way you run your life. I submit to you that it can happen under certain circumstances. And you need to have three things. You need to have a who said, someone who has the power vested in them, that when they say it, it is so. You need to have pomp and ceremony, or a celebration of some kind. And the third thing you must have is tangible evidence. If you have those three things, one statement of fact will change the way you think and therefore change the way you run your life. Let's use as an example the rites of passage of a marriage. Two people are single and they're planning to be married. And they're still acting single. He's still hanging out with the guys and she's still hanging out with the girls. Monday Night Football comes along. He says, "Hun, I'm going down to the bar. We're going to watch the game, have a few brewskis, and I'll see you later." She says, "Great, go and have a good time." Following weekend, she says, "Hun, going shopping with the girls, going to get a new pair of shoes." He said, "Hey, have fun. I'll see you later on tonight." Then, the big day comes. They walk up the steps to the church, the chapel, the synagogue, whatever it is. In front of them is a rabbi, a priest, justice of the peace, someone who says, "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." A who said? Someone who has the power vested in them. Then they go to a celebration afterwards, which is called a reception, and they have a great time. But before they go to the back of the church and they sign the marriage certificate, tangible evidence. They go on a honeymoon, they come back, and in less than a month, he says, "Hun, I'm going down to watch the game at the bar." She said, "Didn't you do that last Monday?" And she says, "I need a new dress, so I'm going to go shopping with the girls." How many dresses do you really need? One statement of fact changes the way you think and therefore changes the way you run your life. Let me give you one more example. Jason and I go way back. He's in his last semester of medical school to be a surgeon. And I found out I need an operation. And since Jason and I go way back, I want him to perform the surgery. After all, he's in his last semester of medical school, right? You know what he says to me? He says, Bill, I can't do it. I'm not a doctor. I'd love to do it, buddy, but I can't. The truth is he can. I go get my surgery. The guy botches it up. 3 months later, he graduates from medical school as a surgeon. There he has the head of surgery, president of the university, a who said, who has the power vested in them. It is a graduation, so you have pomp and ceremony. In fact, they even play pomp and circumstance, don't they? And then they give him a diploma. And on the diploma, it says surgeon. He puts it up on his wall, and now he believes it. Makes things worse. Jason comes in, and he sees it on the wall. He says, I believe it. But the truth is, he could have done it 3 months ago, and I wouldn't be botched up. One statement of fact changes the way you think, and therefore changes the way you run your life. Well, what has this got to do with the Wizard of Oz? Absolutely everything. You see, there's this young girl who had the misfortune of having her house fly around in a tornado and land on a wicked witch. And to make matters worse, she ends up with her ruby red slippers. Fortunately, she ends up in Munchkin Land, where all these little people are going around giggling, and out of nowhere comes this good witch who's coming to rescue her. Except the good witch can't do anything for her. She says, in the land of Oz, there is an Emerald City. And in that Emerald City, there is a, who said? A wizard, right? And if anyone can help you, he can. Well, let's talk about wizards for a moment. I want to make the distinction between a good wizard and a good person. Good people will do everything in their power to protect you. So they will tell you, don't do this. Don't change your careers. Don't go into sales where it's feast or famine. Don't take any risks. Be safe. That's a good person. A good wizard would say, what is it you want to do? Let me help you. And a good wizard will help you live your dreams. Now, he had no power at all, and he knew it, but he understood the truth. So here you have a girl that's trying to get home. She's walking down the yellow brick road, singing to herself, I'm off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz, because of all the wonderful things he does. And she picks up 3 liabilities along the way. What else would you call a scarecrow with no brains, a tin man with no heart, and a lion with no courage? 3 liabilities. But if you think about what really happened, they did for Dorothy the things they could not do for themselves. It was the lion that was willing to fight off the monkey with wings and the armed guards and the witches to protect Dorothy when he couldn't even protect himself. It was the Tin Man who wanted compassion, but he rusted standing guard over Dorothy during the storm in the poppy fields. He showed that compassion that he wanted. And it was the Scarecrow that came up with all the creative and ingenious ideas to figure out how to get rid of the witch. And in the end, it was finally him who threw the bucket of water on the witch. But all he wanted was a brain. You see, we already possess the things that we want, but we haven't been validated. We haven't had the right who said. We haven't had the right pomp and ceremony, and we haven't had the tangible evidence. So they finally make it to the Emerald City. Well, what is the Emerald City? Clearly, it's a party town. It reminds me of New York City, except they've got horses of a different color, and they have lights that change all the time, and people are parading everywhere you go. But in there is a good wizard. Not just a good person, but a good wizard. And he knew the truth. And the truth is, he had no power at all. But he said to them, for all the great and wonderful things you did for Dorothy. You said you want a Medal of Courage, Mr. Lyon? Or where I come from, people pull out their uniforms once a year from under the bed, dust them off, and they parade up and down the street, and every year the story gets bigger and bigger. I'm not so sure if it's going to help you, but here it is. Here's your Medal of Courage. He said to the Tin Man, where I come from, sometimes you're better off not having a heart because all you're going to do is get it broken. But for the compassion that you showed Dorothy in protecting her, here is your heart. And he gave him a heart-shaped clock. And he listened to it. And then he said to the Scarecrow, where I come from, there were people with diplomas up the kazoo, that's my word, and they're driving cabs for a living. But for the creative things you did for Dorothy and getting rid of the witch, here is your diploma of thinkology. Tangible evidence. Who said? Pomp and ceremony and tangible evidence. But they already possessed all the things that they wanted. They already demonstrated that they could. But they weren't validated. Well, what about Dorothy? All she wanted to do was go home. And what did he tell her? Home is in your heart. You carry that with you all the time. But if that's what you want, you've had the power all along. All you have to do is click your heels 3 times. And everything you could ever imagine is yours. One statement of fact changes the way you think and therefore change the way you run your life. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.